Well, it's a little late for me to be doing my Georgia pregame show, but I guess, I'll get my thoughts in before I know any of the results, uh, just so that I have something to beat myself up over if indeed I'm wrong about anything tomorrow, although I don't think I will be because I don't really have any solid predictions to make. Polling seems kind of close, even polls that are halfway decent, it seems somewhat close. I think that probably Robert Cahaley of Trafalgar is onto something when he says that it kind of looks like it's going to be split to where you have one Republican and one Democrat winning, which I guess that's probably I don't know what I would consider to be the best case scenario to come out of tonight. I definitely don't think that it's a great idea if both the Republicans win, because both of them, for one, run horrible campaigns and they deserve to lose. That's absolutely true. They are under the impression that running away from Trump and doing all these sorts of things and trying to appeal to their suburbanites is somehow going to benefit them, when, from what I've seen in the polling, they're doing worse in the Atlanta metropolitan area than Trump did. And additionally, their messaging just does not connect with average people in any sense. I thought that Robert Barnes had an interesting way of putting this, in that they're constantly harping on the socialism messaging, and that's Florida rhetoric. That's not Georgia rhetoric. And obviously, if they're putting up someone like Raphael Warnock, the state, and that he's polling particularly well, the state of Georgia has no aversion to the word socialism. That doesn't mean what it means in Miami. And so if they had, if Loeffler, I don't know how to say the woman's name, in particular had any stones in the figurative sense, she would be hammering Warnock for being a vile racist. That's the easy thing. And then don't apologize, for that, certainly. You can't be mealy-mouthed. The guy's a cretin. He's basically Reverend Wright. Could you imagine Reverend Wright even running for Senate in Illinois? Let alone Georgia? The race should not be close at all. That just, to me, says how awful Kelly Loeffler is. Yes, of course, Georgia's moving to the left because they're importing people as fast as they can, and the governments in these red states all are so eager. They give special tax breaks to these left-wing companies to bring their workers in. They all do it, and it's gross, but they've brought this upon themselves. Nevertheless, somebody like Warnock should not be permitted in polite society. And apparently, on top of all this, he's a wife beater. So, if he wins, actually, I would have to say this: out of the two Democrats, I want Warnock to win, because John Ossoff, even though he's less of a contemptible human being, he would make a much worse senator. Because at least Warnock seems to be a real left-wing radical who might take a principled stand here or there. He seems to not be a fan of the American empire. And even if he thinks that it's some silly, it's only bad because they're white people running America, and that he would absolutely love it, I guess, if it was a black empire, and that he's only concerned about stopping white supremacy. Hey, that's still at least one guy who's against war, theoretically. Whereas Ossoff is just this vapid white suburbanite who, has never had an original thought in his life. He's basically Beto. I see no difference between the two of them. And so if you give me a choice between Beto O'Rourke and Jeremiah Wright, I'm going with Wright. Unfortunately, I think Cahaley's prediction, based on what he's seeing in the turnout and such, is that you're probably going to have a Loeffler win and a Perdue loss, which, to me, that's the worst of both worlds. Warnock at least could be awful enough to generate some sort of a backlash for there to be genuine opposition to him, in the next, 6 years from now. So I guess I'll zoom out a bit and think of this in the macro sense, not just, who the candidates themselves are, but the overall situation, since this is an election for the control of the U.S. Senate. Do I want Mitch McConnell in control of the U.S. Senate? Absolutely not. I think that he's someone who deserves to lose. Apparently, both of these Republicans, Loeffler and Perdue, were doing quite well in the polling. They were ascending before this whole controversy over the $600 versus the $2,000, and Mitch coming out being so strong against that and doing everything that he did, blocking the votes on that and going against Trump. That hurt these two significantly, and they both, by the way, Loeffler and Perdue, they didn't really do anything to come out and support the $2,000 measure, which again is very popular. If people are handing out money, you want to be the one saying you want to give out more money, because that's just where we are right now. And people, they don't feel like this is welfare. Ordinary people, they look at it as, hey, you destroyed my business and you're paying me some reparations. Reparations is not welfare. Now, the other thing that Loeffler and Perdue really screwed up on, and why they deserve to lose, is the whole matter of the supposedly stolen, because I can't say that it was affirmatively stolen on YouTube, the allegedly stolen election in November, in which, both of them, you could argue could have avoided a runoff if it turns out that, the election was a little bit more in their favor than it ended up being. But, and of course, that would totally solidify the Trump base for them, who felt totally disenfranchised after November, who now think, in large part that their votes don't matter, so why would they get out and vote? Something that could have motivated those people is if Loeffler and Perdue came out strongly and said, hey, I'm going to try and object to the Electoral College on January 6th. Something which apparently they're now kind of tepidly saying that they'll do that. At least Loeffler, I heard. But they should have both been trumpeting that from the beginning. They should have been the ones leading the charge and saying that the November election was stolen or whatever. And we have to make sure that, you're outside of the margin of fraud and on January 5th. And so everybody's got to vote. You got to vote even harder than you did in November. That should have been their mantra. Even though vote harder is a meme, I have trouble taking this sort of thing seriously. So I couldn't really think of anything a little more serious than that. But, the average American, the average Georgian, I would think, takes voting seriously, although they take it a lot less seriously after November. So if Loeffler and Perdue lose, the reasons why are clear. And I guess they probably won't have enough sense to recognize that. They're already spinning the narrative in the media that these two are going to lose because Trump is bad, which I guess that's the cure-all answer for everything. Anytime anything goes wrong, it's Trump's fault. But if they win, there'll be a problem, because then they'll feel like they got rewarded for everything they've done. The Georgia Republicans will have been rewarded for screwing up this election. These two will be rewarded for totally throwing Trump under the bus, and they'll be rewarded for just generally being bad candidates who are totally out of touch. Now, I know I said I would get to the macro picture a couple minutes ago, and then I got off on another tangent about that, but if the Republicans hold on to the Senate, they will probably work with Biden on a lot of stuff anyway, get through a lot of bad things. There will be lots of bipartisanship. Of course, Joe Biden was in the Senate for longer than almost anyone, and so he has lots and lots of friends in the Senate, including, I'm sure, Mitch McConnell. Kamala Harris was also a senator, so even if the Republicans control the Senate, they're going to be very amenable to a Biden-Harris administration. So I think that they'll be far less effective in blocking, the Democrat agenda than, say, the Republican House was after 2010. But they might they might slow things down enough to where things aren't, things are, not great for Republican voters, but they're not catastrophic. Whereas if the Democrats are able to take control of the Senate, well, then perhaps they're going to be able to get every last thing that they want, and truly turn the screws on what was the Trump voter base. And that will really energize people and radicalize them into saying, you know what, this whole system is screwed up. We want no part of it. We can't win a rigged game. The Dems are just, stomping all over us. They win everything. They have, 12 justices on the Supreme Court. They got rid of the filibuster in the Senate. They're ramming everything through. And, gun control, all this stuff. I mean, gun control would be a nail in the coffin. That would be totally untenable. But, I mean, all this stuff together, the whole agenda, I hope that, and the problem is Joe Biden's not a very bold guy. So if he wins, He'll probably show a bit more restraint, which isn't good. At this point, if the Democrats are going to take control, if they're going to have that much power, I hope that we're able to accelerate this process of division in this country, because it's irreversible at this point. There's no reconciling the differences that so many people in this country have. And so we need to get to the point to where the federal government and the Democrats in the federal government overreach and overestimate their power to such an extent that they push certain states into breaking away from the Union. The Texas Republicans have already alluded to this, and once that sort of seed is planted in the popular conscience and the zeitgeist, it will only begin to grow and to spread. More and more people are talking about that, and Trump is still president. And again, this is, the best case scenario at this point. We want people to peacefully disassociate from one another. Freedom of association is the best way to settle differences between people. Not everybody's the same. Not everybody's going to get along, and that's okay. It's just the people who don't get along need to, keep their distance. They can't go trying to interfere in one another's lives. They need to, live and let live. And so that means at this point, things have to get worse before they can get better. People need to become more divided. They need to feel like there's a greater sense of urgency. They need to feel like, I think that the right needs to be politically vanquished, so that then they start to, even more than they are now, very seriously look at alternatives to just playing the same game, to just voting harder again. Because if Loeffler and Perdue win, the Republicans keep the Senate, then what's the message going to be? Well, we voted harder and we won this time. Yay, even though that's not a real win. The Republicans in the Senate, they're going to give Joe Biden quite a bit of what he wants. Joe Biden's going to show some restraint. What we need at this point, I think, is a Democratic Party totally unhinged. And I said the same thing about the Republicans when Trump was, after Trump had become president. I thought, okay, well, now maybe Trump will be able to whip people into such a frenzy that the left will secede, which again, the Transition Integrity Project was talking about this. I mean, that's why I finally broke down and said, you know what, I guess in 2020 it'd be better if Trump won, because here you have John Podesta in this war game saying that, he would urge California, Oregon, and Washington to secede from the Union and declare Biden the president of Cascadia. So this is kind of how I'm approaching this runoff election tonight. If you get anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and sharing this video. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe, because I do upload every day and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.